The courtroom was dead silent. But what was about to happen would shatter that silence in a way no one could have imagined. Judge Judy Sheindlin, the legendary legal powerhouse who had presided over thousands of cases with an iron will and razor-sharp tongue, sat behind her bench reviewing documents. Her signature black robe, her perfectly styled hair, her no-nonsense demeanor, everything about her commanded respect. She had seen it all in her decades on the bench. Liars, cheaters, con artists, and every type of entitled behavior imaginable. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for what Karen Mitchell was about to say. Karen stood at the plaintiff's table, her designer purse clutched in one hand, her face twisted into a smirk that screamed arrogance. She had been rolling her eyes, sighing loudly, and interrupting since the moment she walked in. Her lawyer sat beside her, his face already showing signs of regret, as if he knew something terrible was coming. The case itself was simple, a $5,000 dispute over property damage between neighbors. But what made this case unforgettable wasn't the evidence or the testimonies. It was the moment when Karen's eyes traveled up and down Judge Judy's appearance, lingering on her robe, her collar, her entire presence. And then Karen opened her mouth. The words that came out were so shockingly disrespectful, so audaciously insulting, that the entire courtroom gasped in unison. Karen looked Judge Judy dead in the eye and said, "Is that what judges wear these days? Looks like you got dressed in the dark, honey. Maybe try a mirror next time." The bailiff froze mid-step. Audience members' jaws dropped. Karen's own lawyer buried his face in his hands. Even the defendant, who had been nervous just seconds before, looked up with wide eyes, sensing that Karen had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because what Judge Judy said next didn't just destroy Karen's case. It destroyed her dignity, her confidence, and any shred of entitlement she walked in with. The comeback that followed became one of the most brutal, most satisfying, most replayed moments in courtroom television history. And you're about to witness every devastating second of it. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Before we dive into this absolutely jaw-dropping courtroom showdown, hit that like button right now if you're ready to see entitled behavior get completely demolished. And subscribe to this channel, because we bring you the most satisfying moments of justice that the internet can't stop talking about. This wasn't just some random insult thrown around in a courtroom. This was a calculated attack on a woman who has spent her entire life earning respect, building a reputation, and proving that intelligence and integrity matter more than anything else. What Karen didn't realize in her moment of arrogance was that she wasn't just insulting an outfit. She was insulting decades of achievement, millions of fans, and a legacy that has made Judge Judy a household name across America. And Judge Judy's response? It was about to teach Karen and everyone watching a lesson in dignity, respect, and the consequences of letting your entitlement write checks your character can't cash. Now, to understand just how catastrophic Karen's mistake was, you need to understand who Judge Judy really is. Judith Sheindlin isn't just some television personality who happened to get a show. She's a former family court judge who presided over real cases in New York for over 20 years before ever stepping in front of a camera. She graduated from American University and New York Law School, worked as a corporate lawyer, became a prosecutor in the family court system, and was appointed as a judge in 1982. Her reputation in the legal community was formidable. She was known for cutting through nonsense, for seeing through lies in seconds, and for delivering justice with a combination of wisdom and no-tolerance policy for stupidity. When her television show launched in 1996, it became an instant phenomenon because people recognized something authentic in her. She wasn't acting. She was being exactly who she had always been, a judge who demanded respect, truth, and accountability. Over the course of 25 years on television, Judge Judy became more than just a judge. She became an icon. Her signature look, the black robe with a lace collar, her perfectly coiffed hair, her reading glasses perched on her nose, became symbols of authority and fairness. Millions of viewers tuned in daily to watch her dispense justice, and her sharp wit and memorable one-liners became part of American pop culture. She earned every bit of that respect through hard work, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Her courtroom wasn't just a set. It was her domain, and everyone who entered it knew they were stepping into a place where the rules mattered and disrespect would not be tolerated. Then there was Karen Mitchell. Karen walked into that courtroom with an attitude that suggested she thought she was doing everyone a favor by showing up. From the moment she entered, everything about her screamed entitlement. Her designer clothes, her expensive handbag, the way she looked down at everyone around her as if they were beneath her. She was suing her neighbor for $5,000, claiming property damage from a fence dispute. The evidence she brought was questionable at best, a few photographs that didn't clearly show fault, and a handwritten timeline that seemed more like creative writing than documentation. But Karen didn't seem worried about the weakness of her case. She seemed convinced that her confidence alone would win the day. Her lawyer, a middle-aged man who looked increasingly uncomfortable as the hearing progressed, had clearly tried to prep her on courtroom etiquette. But Karen wasn't interested in etiquette. She wasn't interested in rules. She had walked in with the assumption that she could charm or intimidate her way to victory. And when Judge Judy began asking pointed questions about her evidence, Karen's frustration started to show. The courtroom itself was packed that day. Regular audience members who had lined up for hours to get seats filled every bench. Some were retirees who watched Judge Judy religiously and wanted to see her in action. Others were tourists who had heard about the show and wanted the experience. A few law students sat in the back, notebooks open, studying how a master handled her courtroom. They had come expecting entertainment, maybe some drama, but what they were about to witness would exceed every expectation. The defendant, a soft-spoken woman in her 50s named Margaret, sat at her table looking nervous but hopeful. She had brought her own evidence, contractor estimates, photographs with timestamps, and witness statements from other neighbors. She seemed prepared, respectful, and genuinely invested in telling the truth. The contrast between her demeanor and Karen's was stark. While Margaret sat quietly, hands folded, occasionally glancing at her notes, Karen fidgeted, rolled her eyes, and made exaggerated expressions of impatience every time Margaret spoke. It was clear from the beginning that Karen had no respect for the process, no respect for her opponent, and, as it would soon become horrifyingly clear, no respect for the judge herself. The tension in the room was building with every passing minute, and everyone could feel it. Something was about to break, and when it did, it would be spectacular. Judge Judy opened the proceedings with her standard efficiency, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. She looked at Karen and said, "Ms. Mitchell, you're claiming $5,000 in damages. Show me your evidence." Karen stood up, grabbing her stack of papers with a dramatic flourish that suggested she thought this would be easy. She began explaining her case, but her tone was all wrong. Instead of being respectful and clear, she spoke to Judge Judy the way someone might talk to a subordinate. "Well, obviously, Your Honor, if you just look at these photos, you can clearly see that her fence damaged my property. I mean, it's pretty straightforward if you ask me." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed slightly, the first warning sign that Karen completely missed. "Ms. Mitchell, I didn't ask you. You asked me, and I'll decide what's straightforward. Just present your evidence without the commentary." Karen's face flickered with annoyance, but she continued, sliding the photographs across the bench. Judge Judy picked them up, examining them carefully through her reading glasses. As she studied the images, Karen couldn't help herself. She let out an audible sigh, tapping her fingers on the table as if Judge Judy was taking too long. The audience members exchanged glances. The bailiff shifted his weight, sensing trouble. Karen's lawyer leaned over and whispered urgently in her ear, probably telling her to control herself. But Karen waved him off dismissively. Judge Judy set the photos down and turned to the defendant. "Ms. Peterson, let me hear your side." Margaret stood up respectfully and began explaining that the fence was actually on the property line, that she had hired a surveyor, and that she had all the documentation to prove it. She was calm, clear, and credible. But before she could finish her second sentence, Karen interrupted. That's not true. She's completely lying. The fence is clearly on my side. Judge Judy's head snapped toward Karen, her voice sharp and controlled. Ms. Mitchell, you will not interrupt in my courtroom. You will wait your turn, and you will speak when I tell you to speak. Do you understand me? The room went completely silent. Karen's face flushed red, but instead of backing down, she crossed her arms defensively and muttered just loud enough for the microphone to catch. Fine. Whatever. The audience collectively held its breath. Judge Judy had dealt with difficult litigants before, but there was something about Karen's dismissive attitude that was pushing the boundaries. Margaret continued her testimony, presenting her surveyor's report and contractor estimates. The evidence was thorough and well organized. Judge Judy nodded as she reviewed the documents, clearly seeing that Margaret had a strong case. But as Judy's attention was focused on the paperwork, Karen's eyes began to wander. She wasn't looking at the evidence anymore. She was looking at Judge Judy herself, her gaze traveling from the black robe to the lace collar, a smirk slowly forming on her face, as if she had just thought of something clever. Her lawyer noticed, and his face went pale, shaking his head frantically. But Karen ignored him completely. She leaned back in her chair, that smirk growing wider, and everyone in the courtroom sensed that something catastrophic was about to happen. Karen's voice cut through the courtroom like nails on a chalkboard, loud and dripping with mockery. Is that what judges wear these days? Looks like you got dressed in the dark, honey. Maybe try a mirror next time. The reaction was instantaneous and electric. Gasps erupted from every corner of the gallery. The bailiff's hand flew to his forehead in disbelief. Margaret's eyes went wide, her mouth forming a perfect circle of shock. Karen's lawyer dropped his pen, his face draining of all color as he slumped back in his chair, completely defeated. Audience members looked at each other with expressions that screamed, "Did she really just say that?" Some pulled out their phones, hands shaking as they tried to capture what was surely about to become television history. Karen sat there with that smirk still plastered on her face, seemingly proud of herself, completely oblivious to the nuclear bomb she had just detonated. Judge Judy's expression didn't change immediately. She simply set down the document she was holding, her movements slow and deliberate. She removed her reading glasses, folding them with meticulous care, and placed them on the bench in front of her. The silence stretched out 10 seconds, 15 seconds, an eternity of tension that made everyone lean forward in their seats. Karen's smirk began to falter just slightly as she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had made a mistake. When Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, but it carried the weight of decades of authority. Ms. Mitchell. The pause that followed was devastating. Did you just comment on my appearance? Karen, still trying to maintain her bravado, shrugged. I was just saying that maybe. Judge Judy held up one finger, and Karen's voice died instantly. I asked you a yes or no question. Did you just insult what I'm wearing? Karen shifted uncomfortably, her confidence cracking. I mean, it was just yes or no, Ms. Mitchell. Karen swallowed hard. Yes, but stop talking. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes locked on Karen like a predator zeroing in on prey. Let me explain something to you. This robe that you just mocked? I earned the right to wear it. I earned it through years of law school while working multiple jobs. I earned it through decades of prosecuting cases and protecting children in family court. I earned it through 25 years of sitting on this bench and dispensing justice to thousands of people who came before me. This robe represents respect, authority, and the law itself. It's not a costume, Ms. Mitchell. It's a symbol of everything I've worked for in my entire life. The courtroom was absolutely frozen. Karen's face had gone from smug to pale, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Judge Judy wasn't finished. Her voice grew stronger, more forceful. You walked into MY courtroom, demanding MY time, asking me to take $5,000 from another person and give it to you. And you had the audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall, to insult me. Before we continue with what happened next, smash that like button right now if Judge Judy just became your absolute hero. And make sure you're subscribed because what happens after this gets even more satisfying. This wasn't just a courtroom takedown. This was a masterclass in why you never, ever disrespect someone who holds your fate in their hands. Judge Judy was about to finish what she started, and Karen's world was about to completely crumble. Judge Judy sat back in her chair, her fingers steepled in front of her, her eyes never leaving Karen's face. You want to talk about appearances, Ms. Mitchell? Let's talk about appearances. You walked in here wearing designer clothes, carrying a handbag that costs more than most people make in a month, looking down your nose at everyone in this room. You've interrupted, you've rolled your eyes. You've shown nothing but contempt for this process from the moment you arrived. And now you think you can comment on what I'm wearing. Karen tried to speak, her voice shaky. Your Honor, I didn't mean any disrespect. You were just what? Being clever? Being funny? Let me tell you what you were being, Ms. Mitchell. You were being exactly what your character is. And that's the real issue here. Because all the designer labels in the world can't dress up a personality that's ugly on the inside. The courtroom erupted in barely suppressed reactions. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," while others sat with their hands over their mouths in shock. The bailiff looked like he was fighting back a smile. Margaret, the defendant, sat motionless, her eyes glistening, as if she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Judge Judy picked up her gavel, and everyone knew what was coming. Your case is dismissed, Ms. Mitchell. Not because your evidence is weak, although it is. Not because Ms. Peterson's case is stronger, although it clearly is. Your case is dismissed because you have shown such profound disrespect for this court that you don't deserve another second of my time or anyone else's. Karen's mouth fell open. What? You can't do that. That's not fair. You're supposed to judge the case, not, I just did judge the case, Judge Judy interrupted, her voice like steel. I judged that someone with your attitude and your behavior doesn't get to win anything in my courtroom. Judgment for the defendant. You're also paying her court costs, Ms. Mitchell. Consider it a lesson in respect. The gavel came down with a thunderous crack that echoed through the chamber. Get out of my courtroom. Karen stood there, frozen in disbelief, her face cycling through emotions. Shock, anger, humiliation. This is insane. I'm going to appeal this. You can't just... Judge Judy leaned forward one last time. Ms. Mitchell, I said get out. Bailiff, please escort her out. The bailiff moved toward Karen, who was now sputtering incoherently, grabbing her purse and papers with shaking hands. This isn't over. You'll hear from my lawyer. This is discrimination. As the bailiff guided her toward the exit, Karen continued her tirade, her voice growing more shrill with each step. The courtroom doors closed behind Karen with a definitive thud, and for a moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, the gallery began to buzz with whispered conversations, people turning to each other with expressions of pure astonishment. Judge Judy calmly put her glasses back on, picked up the next case file, and said with perfect composure, "Next case." Just like that, she had moved on, as if demolishing someone's entitlement was just another Tuesday in her courtroom. But outside those courtroom walls, the moment was just beginning to explode. Within an hour, the clip was uploaded to YouTube, and the internet absolutely lost its mind. The video titled "Karen Mocked Judge Judy's Outfit." Judy's comeback left the whole courtroom silent, racked up 100,000 views in the first 60 minutes. By the end of the day, it had hit 1 million. By the end of the week, over 10 million people had watched Karen's humiliation play out in glorious high definition. The comments section became a celebration of justice. That's why Judge Judy has been on TV for 25 years. She doesn't play games. Karen really thought she could insult Judge Judy and walk away with $5,000. The way Judy said your character is ugly on the inside was the most savage thing I've ever heard. I've watched this 12 times, and it gets better every single time. Social media platforms exploded with the clip. Twitter users created the hashtag #JudgeJudyJustice, which trended for 3 straight days. TikTok creators made reaction videos, their faces showing pure shock and delight as they watched Karen's comeuppance. Instagram memes flooded feeds, with screenshots of Karen's face transforming from smug confidence to utter horror, captioned with things like, "When you insult the wrong person and play stupid games, win stupid prizes." The moment became a cultural touchstone, referenced in podcasts, morning talk shows, and even late-night comedy routines. Legal experts weighed in, confirming that Judge Judy had every right to dismiss the case for contempt of court. Fashion commentators defended Judge Judy's iconic look, with one stylist writing, "Judge Judy's robe and collar are legendary. Karen wouldn't know style if it hit her with a gavel." Even people who had never watched Judge Judy before became instant fans, binge-watching compilation videos of her greatest moments. The clip wasn't just viral, it was a phenomenon. Karen had wanted to be clever for 5 seconds, and instead, she became the internet's favorite example of what happens when entitlement meets accountability. The aftermath of Karen's courtroom disaster continued to unfold in ways she never could have imagined. Reports surfaced that she had attempted to appeal the case, claiming that Judge Judy had been biased and unfair. The appeal was denied almost immediately, with the reviewing judge noting that Judge Judy had acted well within her authority to dismiss a case for contempt of court. Karen's attempt to paint herself as the victim only made things worse. She gave an interview to a local news station, trying to explain that she was just joking, and that Judge Judy had overreacted. But the interview backfired spectacularly. Viewers who watched it overwhelmingly sided with Judge Judy, with comment sections filled with responses like, "You insulted a judge in her courtroom and you're surprised there were consequences, and the audacity to call it a joke after you lost is just chef's kiss." Karen's social media accounts, which she had apparently made public in an attempt to defend herself, were flooded with thousands of comments reminding her of her mistake. She eventually deleted everything and disappeared from public view. But the internet never forgets. Her moment of arrogance had been captured forever, a permanent reminder of what happens when you let your ego write checks your character can't cash. Meanwhile, Judge Judy's legend only grew. The clip became one of the most watched moments in her entire career, frequently appearing in top 10 Judge Judy moments compilations and most savage courtroom takedowns videos. In later interviews, when asked about memorable cases, Judge Judy addressed the incident with her characteristic straightforwardness. "I've presided over thousands of cases, and I've seen every kind of behavior imaginable. But when someone disrespects the robe, when they disrespect what it represents, they're disrespecting the entire judicial system. And that I will never tolerate. Not for a second." Her words resonated with millions because they spoke to something deeper than just a courtroom exchange. This was about respect, earned authority, and the consequences of entitled behavior. Young people especially connected with the moment, seeing in Judge Judy a figure who didn't let anyone diminish her accomplishments, who stood firm in her dignity, and who proved that true power comes from what you've earned, not what you can buy or how loudly you can talk. The defendant, Margaret, won her case by default and walked out of that courtroom vindicated. In a follow-up interview, she said, "I came in so nervous, but watching Judge Judy handle Karen like that, I realized I was in good hands." Justice was served in more ways than one that day. The case became a teaching moment used in law schools and communication classes across the country. Professors played the clip to illustrate courtroom decorum, the importance of respect in professional settings, and how composure under attack is more powerful than any aggressive response. Students watched in awe as Judge Judy demonstrated that you don't need to raise your voice to command a room. You just need to know your worth and refuse to let anyone diminish it. Karen walked into that courtroom thinking she was smarter than everyone else, thinking her designer clothes and sharp tongue would carry her to victory. Instead, she learned the hardest lesson of her life, that respect isn't given based on what you wear or how much money you have. It's earned through character, integrity, and how you treat others. Judge Judy's robe represented decades of dedication to justice. Karen's outfit represented nothing but superficial values and misplaced confidence. And in the end, character won. It always does. If this story reminded you why respect and dignity matter, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more incredible moments where entitled behavior gets exactly what it deserves. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever witnessed? And remember, whether you're in a courtroom or in life, your character is the only thing you're really wearing. Make sure it's something you're proud of. Judge Judy taught us that day that true class can never be insulted, only revealed. And Karen? She revealed everything we needed to know.